Welcome to the Liberating River, where spiritual freedom meets soul-aligned wealth. I'm your guide, Wanda Nesbit. Let's break free, build boldly, and live fully together. There comes a moment when the faith that once held you no longer fits. A point in every believer's life when cracks start to show under the weight of questions you were never allowed to ask. It is not rebellion, it is recognition. Something in you continues to whisper, there must be more. Maybe you're at that place right now, standing between what you were taught and what your soul knows. This episode is for you. The ones wrestling between faith deconstruction and divine awakening. Because sometimes losing your religion is the first step to finding your God. In today's episode, we are diving deep into one of the most sacred, I believe, crossroads of the spiritual path. It is when your faith system no longer fits, but your heart still believes. Faith deconstruction is not destruction. Hear me. Faith deconstruction is not destruction. It is clarity. It is when your soul starts to audit the architecture of your belief system, asking, who told me this? Why do I believe this? And does it still align with the truth that's unfolding within me? Many people fear this phase because it threatens community, belonging, and certainty. But I promise you, questioning is not the enemy of faith. It is the evidence of life. Just as a seed must crack before it can grow, your understanding of God must expand way before and beyond the walls that you once felt safe before you can truly grow. I realize, you might start to feel the edges of your old beliefs cracking. This is in my opinion. You feel it cracking, but I don't think it's to stop you from being with God. I think it's causing you to do that because you truly love God. Because you started hearing God in places your religion told you not to listen. Again, this is not about rebellion. This is about resonance. This is about moving from borrowed belief, things that you have been taught and told from other people's life's journeys, to your own personal revelation. Maybe it began quietly after a sermon that no longer sat right within you, or a verse that was used as a weapon, or a rule that made you feel small or someone you know feel small. Or maybe, and unfortunately, it came through a wave of grief and loss and betrayal. And during those times, suddenly, the God you were handed felt too small for your pain. I am a witness. I have experienced actually all three of those down through my life's journey, the weaponry of scripture verses. And unfortunately, that is always, it's a constant thing when you are in certain institutions. The rules embedded in religious institutions are based on making people feel small, unworthy. I lived that for years. And in those times, I felt that God was not in my vicinity. That's what I felt. God was not in the vicinity. And if I go deeper into that, I feel like God didn't care. But I started deconstruction. I grew, I stretched, and I learned. And because of that, I had the faith to know God would be with me during the last 5 years of grief and loss. So, yes, I know I have been where you are or you're going or where you have been. So I'm there with you. You did not plan for a faith deconstruction. Neither did I, but it happened. We just woke up one day and realized, I can't unknow what I now know, what I've now experienced. And that's where the breaking begins. It is also where the breakthrough hides. So take a deep breath with me. You know me and my breath work. Take a deep breath with me. Recenter yourself. Because this is not about losing faith. This is about finding what is real beneath what you were told. We fear deconstruction as if it is destruction. Well, let me define both of those words for you. I'm going to try and do it in its simplest definition in terms for you. I did look it up. I looked it up in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. And according to Merriam-Webster, deconstruction is nothing more than analyzing something to discover its true significance. That's it. To analyze something to discover its true significance or its true essence. If we look further down into the terms, destruction, according to Merriam-Webster, is defined as the action or process of destroying something. So one analyzes while the other destroys. Two totally different worlds. Now that you have clarity on the terminology, I know the title resonates different with you. We are not here to destroy faith. We're here to analyze faith. We are not tearing down faith. It is about honesty. It is about realizing that you have been living on borrowed beliefs, someone else's language for your personal relationship with the divine. Faith deconstruction does not attack God. It is a sacred unlearning of the filters that distorted your view of God. How? Well, you begin to notice how guilt was used to guide you. You begin to notice how shame was mistaken for conviction, how obedience was often misused and labeled as silence. And when you finally say, I can't do this performance anymore, it feels like a free fall. At least it felt like that for me. Because the structure that once gave me and gave you the identity, it no longer holds. It's no longer true. But the great news is it is okay. And it is okay if you are scared. It is okay if you do not know what to believe right now. That is the best space and place you should be. That disorientation is what I believe is the divine awakening. It is the beginning stages of you truly getting to know God. It is that difference between faith deconstruction and divine awakening. One is the analyzing, the looking things, dissecting things. The other is for unfolding. And I get it. Sometimes they happen in the same breath and it's overwhelming, but it's okay. While deconstruction asks, "Mm, what if everything I've been taught isn't entirely true?" Start questioning that. I think the divine awakening says, and what if that is the doorway to knowing God for yourself? When you are in deconstruction mode, you question everything: the text, the religion, the system, yourself. When you are in awakening mode, you begin to see that God was never trapped in those boxes. Hear me, God cannot be contained. We were taught to contain God, and that's the problem. We learned through our environments to label and only do things that make sense. And I'm going to put those in quotes: make sense. But you know what I realized? God does not do things that make sense. Down in history, look at all the sacred writings. God did a lot of things that, from our eyes, do not make sense. And that is why it's hard for many of us to understand truly who God is. But think about it. And I'm going to let you sit on this too. Think about it. In the scriptures, specifically in the Old Testament, the book of Numbers, chapter 22, it speaks of a talking ass. Let us be real. If an ass started talking to you today, what would you do? How would you react? How would you attempt to classify and structurally define that phenomenon? Because I know we would, because it makes sense. Because the reality of it is, one, we were, we were, it has been instilled in us to question everything. But I'm going to challenge your thought. The truth is, it has happened before. Why can it not happen again? And that's the scary part, because it could. I know that's a lot to take in. So I'm going to tell you right now, take a deep breath. Even pause this. Sit in that. Do not run from your thoughts. Consider them. Remember, we are creators. We were created in God's image and likeness. So the vastness of God is innately within us. Stop boxing God in. It is time to shift from control to communion, from performance to presence, from religion to relationship. But I'm going to be honest with you. That in between season hurts. It does. It hurts. You lose belonging before you find becoming. I'm going to say that again. You lose belonging before you find becoming. Friends, will fade away, walk away, run away from you. Family will question everything you do. They want to start praying for you constantly and talking about you in their circles and strongly suggesting, you know, what has what was already in place, that tradition, I'm gonna say, that's been in place, that they want you to still hold on to and continue to do while you're going through your process. You might even question yourself because you're no longer who you used to be. Neither have you arrived to where you're becoming. So you're in that middle place, that that spiritual wilderness where you're by yourself. Stay tuned. To be continued. Coming next week. Thanks for flowing with us on the Liberating River. Subscribe, share, and come back next week for more wisdom, wealth, and alignment. Stay free, stay grounded, stay bold.